Well, welcome to another Inbound After Hours, Andrew.
Hi, you alright?
Yeah, not too bad. How have you been?
Good, yeah, all good. Just plodding along, cracking on.
Good.
Yeah, how about you?
Yeah, all good. Can't complain. It's been good to, for those listening on the audio version of this, will notice seeing the other podcasts going out on the network. Got 5 or 6 now, which is great. And
Got
we're
some
just
bangers, haven't we?
Yeah, we're just one of many now, which is nice.
Yeah, definitely. There's some really good ones. So yeah, no, it's all good. We need to keep up the pace, really.
Yeah, it's good different perspectives on the inbound world, isn't it? Your content, projects, HR, but all with that sort of like inbound context.
Definitely.
It's quite interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What are we talking about today then?
Back to inbound marketing today. So I guess we've been around this game a while, so we wanted to go through our common or top or really obvious pitfalls that people fall into with inbound marketing and just narrow it down to a top 2 or 3 that we come across and see quite regularly.
Yeah, I thought what was interesting about this one was not just the obvious stuff that can go wrong, but it's probably the stuff you are told to do and is actually right at a time. It's like the tactics that everyone tells you to do can actually turn into a bad thing eventually. Yeah. And that's kind of, some of these are kind of focused around that, where it's probably going to be quite annoying listening because I'm sure on another podcast we've said do this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, I was reflecting the other week around some of this stuff where tactically over time a lot of these things can become old very quickly. So I guess we wanted to go through them and kind of share what we think those are.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think I read a really good blog or something on this. It's that curse of best practice. Like, there's so many best practice things out there. If you do all of the best practice things, you end up being generic. It's not saying that things are wrong, but it's choosing which ones to do and when to do them and how to do them.
And the best practice are often the safest tactic or the least risky a lot of the time, hence best, but it usually is safest as well.
Yeah.
And well, we'll get into it, I suppose.
I was going to say that leads nicely into the first one, doesn't it, around what content you produce.
So yeah, this is one I've been thinking about a lot lately, and I think with inbound, because of its nature of being super educational and trying to cover all bases from a topic perspective and be like a topical authority, and it being a new methodology to your organisation, I think a lot of marketers, rightfully so, kind of start at the start and they go with, what's my organisational topic? You know, all right, well, what is that thing? I'm going to do 101 of inbound marketing or whatever I do, you know, manufacturing analytics, let's say. Yeah. And I'm going to say, what is it? How do you do it? What tools do I use? And run through how, what, and why of it. Great, that's your campaign. But then I think you can keep going with that thread and keep pulling at it, and then like, well, what is it in this way and what is it in that way? And you start chopping it up way too fine. Not really saying anything new, but it's kind of this beginner level content, which I genuinely think is quite a risk with inbound marketing, where the keyword volumes may tell you to write that stuff, or it might actually look good to be doing a bit of a glossary around that. And absolutely, that's kind of the right thing to do at the start and cover your bases. But absolutely, everybody is the lowest bar for content that you can have. Like,
you can't get it wrong, can you?
What is keyword?
Yeah,
like, that's just number one, stop one. And so everyone else is going to be doing that stuff. It's totally saturated in any sector that, you know, as long as you're not the only person creating content in your sector, but it's very quickly saturated, very hard to say anything interesting or new. And because you spend all your time doing that stuff on that bit of a hamster wheel of this beginner content, you're never really going in depth on a topic. You're never really able to show expertise or go to like an advanced like level. And because of that, that's kind of where your authority comes from, and the brand, your tone of voice, like your personality. Like you can't, when it's shallow content, you really can't address that stuff. So it's so hard because there is a time where you should write that entry level stuff. If if you don't have any of that on your website, like, go for it. And if no one else is writing that stuff, great. But I just think that's definitely one pitfall that I would, put money on. Pretty much everyone that's done inbound marketing has probably written that stuff, and maybe writing too much of that stuff. So
it's easy to see how people get there, isn't it? Like you say, the best practice of, okay, you're going to cover a topic, so cover it properly. Start at the beginning, do the what and why and whatever. You'll then read something that says go with the keyword research, and probably what is X is going to be the highest searched volume. So it's easy to see how people go down that road. I guess for people to maybe listen to this and be persuaded to go another way is have a look what's been done on that already, and really challenge yourself to say that, look, if 10 people have done this, are you actually going to do it 10 times better than someone else has? If you're not, pick another battle, do something else. If someone's already done, like for us, what is inbound, HubSpot's probably done an amazing job. Can we do any better? Probably not. So it's probably not us worth writing a blog post next week about what is inbound marketing. And then the other one is from a strategic perspective. I always say to the strategist here, start the other side, start at the bottom of the funnel. And maybe this doesn't, it probably is equally as applicable in-house, but from an agency perspective, you've got to prove ROI, and you've got to prove it quite quickly. Probably in-house, the pressure's the same, I guess. So the bottom of the funnel is where the quicker ROI comes from. So if you're already getting traffic and you do a content audit and you think, we've not got anything at any of the stages of the buyer's journey, start with the decision phase, because that's going to flip the traffic you've got now through to SQLs. Those SQLs are going to close the quickest. Yeah. So if you start with a complete blank canvas, I'd start at the reverse. I'd start at the bottom of the funnel.
Yeah, and that would direct your, like, the content piece you create or the conversion, like lead magnet or whatever, but equally have a bit of liberty to do a technical deep dive on a product that only your customers know about or SQLs are aware of, and email that out in your first campaign, and, like you say, harvest those people that are there. It's a tiny percentage of your market, obviously, and that's why you're doing inbound, but don't forget that when you start creating content, there is people close to close that you could actually buy yourself a bit of time and sort of push out that timeline for the other results to come through. What I was going to say, actually, before you mention that, was also on this point around the thin content or beginner level stuff is it's typically you fall into the pitfall of it being quite keyword driven or on those like low end search volumes, and we'll get onto that, I guess, in the next point. But not to forget, you're looking at what your competitors are doing, and that's not your only route for distribution for this content. You've got social, you've got email, you've got your own website. So don't just go to what the data says from a search perspective every time. That's absolutely a huge part of this, and over time that will be where you win. But if you're seeing gaps and going, oh yeah, but there's not a keyword for it, but no one else has written about this, and I know my persona, I know my organization, I know what customers are asking about, like, get that in front of people. And again, it's you might not be able to justify it before you write it with some search volume or a competitor's written exactly the same thing and we need to beat them, but just have a bit of conviction and confidence and get buy-in around a gap. I think there's that stat that flies around, like 20% of all Google searches were only searched today for the first time ever. It's always, like, keyword research only gets you so far, and then you get into like brand positioning and brand messaging and not worrying too much about search volumes all the time. That's probably a different podcast, but it kind of is not forgetting, like, again, best practices, do your keyword research, come up with your title, brief, like this cookie cutter, like, reliable process is not the be all and end all either. So think outside of that and probably have a blend of both to then give you that depth.
There's the ones that tend to do, again, just thinking strategically, isn't it? But the ones that have no keyword volume behind them are the ones that tend to do best on some of the other channels, email and social in particular. Like, if I was to say HubSpot released OpsHub last month, we should be doing a video or a blog or whatever it is about what is the OpsHub. If I went in now and searched for the keyword volume, there'd be none. Yeah. But I know our personas are talking about it, so it'd do really well on social and email. It's just that, like, human, like, use your brain. Yeah. It's like following sat nav into a lake, isn't it? Yeah. Like,
oh yeah, but that's what it said. So just ignore that for a moment and just look around what's going on.
Yeah.
Speak to your team. There's a huge thing going on that happened yesterday. Like, let's get something out and be reactive. So yeah, that would help, again, give you that depth and avoid that. So yeah, what's the other one that we were mentioning? Go to our trusty whiteboard.
Yeah, I guess the next one was kind of going with the inbound playbook and trying to do everything. And by trying to do everything, unless you have huge budget, huge team, you're probably not going to do everything justice. And you see this particularly with things like social. Okay, playbook says be on LinkedIn, be on Twitter, be on Facebook, be on, I don't know, another half a dozen channels these days.
Yeah.
I imagine. Do you need to be? Like, actually question, do I need to be? Would I be better if I actually picked one that my persona's really in and really invested in, and just doing an amazing job of it? So all your content formats are spot on for it. You're using the most up-to-date ways of communicating through that channel, and you're really doing it justice, rather than I've got one post, I'm going to share it on 7 channels just because.
Yeah, I think that comes back to the confidence thing again. Is stuff could get mediocre results on all channels and not necessarily underperform, but you sort of blocking yourself from really excelling on Instagram if that's a channel for you, because you're busy doing Twitter stuff as well, or whatever. LinkedIn's the place to be, but you're doing fine on it, but you could do 10 times better if you just stop doing Facebook and put all the time and effort into that one channel. I think, like you say, you got automation tools like HubSpot that can do it all in a click of a finger, and that kind of might make you think you're not losing out because it's easy to just, duplicate and post it out on every channel. But it's more that creativity and strategic thought around, you just come in and do a bit of everything every day forever. You're not really getting to the point of being a marketer or performance marketing, which is looking at what's working and doing more and moving in a certain direction. You just sort of, like I said, the production factory just continues and you keep putting stuff out and you just end up not getting mediocre results, don't you? Yeah,
get mediocre results across a lot of things, which kind of gets you somewhere, but maybe doesn't get you.
Well, it's the worst thing, isn't it? It's like you don't do badly enough for someone to spot it and go, this is crap, like what's going on?
Yeah.
Or even your internal monologues, like everything's okay.
Everything's green.
But you look back 3 years later and you've not really moved the needle from where you started. You've just been like generally plodding along, which kind of you don't really want if you want to progress in your career or like you want to hit some like bigger goals. So that's definitely a pitfall, I think. Yeah. It's kind of that spoilt by choice and spoilt by the tool's ability to quickly do stuff. Automation's great and you can make your life very easy, but it doesn't mean it's going to make your results good.
Yeah, because you can doesn't mean you should.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
Coming back to...
That's hard. That's a hard thing as starting out with inbound, even starting out with social marketing as an in-house, like if you've not really done it before. You probably are going to take a while to make those calls, so it's not like a month in, you're like, right, we're jumping all in on TikTok, like forget everything else. But over time, you should probably give yourself some personal milestones just to have if you're just a one-man band, like after a quarter or whatever, just have a proper think and just knock one off and see if it actually impacts the bigger numbers, or just have a play around with it. But definitely worth building in that internal like check. Yeah. With any of this stuff.
I guess you've got to cover the baseline of having something at each stage of the methodology. Like you've got to have something that attracts people. You've got to have something that converts people. You've got to. So you need to make sure that you're not narrowing your options down by the stages of the methodology. But where I see this happen a lot is take the attract stage. It's like, okay, I'm going to do all my social channels. I'm going to do SEO. I'm going to do PPC. I'm going to do PPC on 5 channels. That's the stage really where it gets bloated. There's all these ways I can amplify and talk to people. That's the one where you really need to have a look at and review and niche down what's effective. Most companies can do really, really well and massively grow with 2 or 3 of those channels. If you nail your SEO, nail one social channel, and do one in PPC really well, actually you don't need to do some of that other stuff because you can be masters of that. And I think again having confidence is the big one, isn't it? And I guess you can get that in this context from two places. Knowing your persona, so just being really sure like my people are there and that's where I'm going to win. The other one, which you hear a lot of people saying now, with particularly where how saturated inbound and digital marketing is look at what your competitors are doing and pick your battles. If you're in a hugely competitive niche and someone over there is absolutely cleaning up on YouTube, someone over there is absolutely cleaning up on LinkedIn, have a look at what they're not doing. And try and say, right, we're going to go and carve that niche out for us and we're going to dominate there, because we don't have the time, effort, resources to dominate on YouTube like they are, but we can do Twitter amazing, and they don't have the time to be as personalised and responsive as we are. So it's
a good one. Like when you mention personas there, I think that's a huge thing. Obviously, the persona has to be useful and properly researched and not just a quick one-pager. Modern persona, I think the view on modern personas is I'd say middling, if not a bit negative these days. Like I think there's a lot of stuff out there around how they're not as useful unless you do X, Y, and Z, and it's another podcast entirely, but like actually speaking to customers and genuinely doing that regularly and keeping them up to date. Once you've got that and you're happy with it and it's a practical document, that should be the driving force behind the decisions you make, not keyword volumes, competitor analysis on Hootsuite or whatever, some other tool that's giving you this like drive to do more or do all these other 10 things. Like, go back to basics, go back to your customer. I mean, that's super obvious advice in marketing, but it's true, and that should hopefully keep you on the straight and narrow and stop you feeling the need to spin 20 plates and just focus on what's in front of you.
That's a big point on the persona research, though, and maybe how a lot of people end up doing a lot of these things is not putting enough time and effort in to really question and interview persona. So keep on this social one while we're on this thread. It's probably super easy. Got my persona template, I'm targeting a CFO, I've got some tick boxes about what social channels they're on. Pretty easy to say they're on everything, because everyone is kind of on everything, but that's the easy answer in it. They'll tick them all, so we'll do them all. But actually, if you spoke on the phone with 10 CFOs, you'd get a pretty laser answer on, okay, yeah, they're on Instagram, but...
Yeah, it's just my kids have got it or whatever.
Yeah, I'm actually doing stuff on... I know LinkedIn's the obvious answer to that, but it may not be the case. But it's having those actual conversations with people to figure it out.
That's hard. That's not... Like, getting a good persona together is actually really hard.
Yeah.
And... sorry, like everyone it is, and that's what puts people off, and that's why you want to cut corners and just get an answer that isn't wrong. Like you say, they're on everything. Of course they are. Everyone's on everything. But where do they actually listen? What do they engage with? What do they care about? What do they spend time actually on? Like, it might just be mainly podcasts and they're not bothered about LinkedIn. Right, okay. Again, you're never going to get a perfect answer, but the more and more people you speak to, the more rounded and broader, averaged out those responses are going to be, and you're just going to get closer and closer to a truth and something that's realistic. But yeah, personas are a whole other ballgame.
I note that. I think that'd be a good next podcast, is how to do an actually useful persona.
I mean, yeah, that would be interesting. Go through our process, because it's...
Yeah, it's hard work, and it's
but a lot of people. I mean, it's a catch-22 really. HubSpot make it so easy on their website, like buildapersona.com, and you type in about 3 things, and it just spits out this cool
nice
looking
little graphic on it, and
that's brilliant for HubSpot for lead gen, but really bad for us as an agency who like want to do something.
Because people say I've got personas, because I did it on the HubSpot website. Well,
let's just change. Let's do personas now. This podcast is diverting, but no, you're right, because.
That's where the bad practices come from.
A lot of this, it's so hard. Like, a lot of the stuff, you want it to keep it simple. The ideal persona, 1-pager, everything on there, but there's so much behind that to get to a 1-pager. Like, loads of other documentation, recordings, meetings, time and effort and thinking. So yeah, we'll do that. We'll go through that and explain how to do it properly. Yeah. Anyway,
cool.
Back to where we were.
So we've done... trying to do everything, please everyone, run all the channels, do everything. We've done picking the sort of obvious beginner sort of types of content, all of that sort of stuff. So the last one then is content types. Probably with a bit of a personal vendetta against ebooks, maybe.
I don't know what you're talking about. No, it's definitely content types, but brackets campaign ideas. You like to say it's that. So, yeah, no one will be like unfamiliar with the fact that I have a thing against ebooks at the moment. So much so we've got a bit of a bang going on at our agency. But yeah, so kind of going back to the first topic we remember, like taking it on a bit further, is around campaign ideas with inbound marketing. Again, go back 5-7 years and do 10x content, do the ultimate guide to your sector, 30-page ebook, everything you need to know. We'll pull out chapters as blogs. It's going to be amazing. Video's not here yet. We don't need to worry about that. And you just create this huge PDF full of value, and it may well be. And then you blast it out on email, social, whatever, and people download it. You know the rest. Fine. And I actually think there's absolutely a place for those sorts of documents if you're in a weird sector, or your audience are newcomers, or it's a new methodology for them. Absolutely. Like, probably not 30 pages, but there's a place for those sorts of documents. But I think one of the pitfalls is going, hey, I can connect the dots on this tool that I've got called HubSpot, this methodology called Inbound, and all this content I'm being told to write. I can really easily connect the dots there by writing a blog, creating a landing page with a thing behind it, form, workflow, report. I get leads out at the end. I've got something to tell my boss. And that sort of gets etched into your brain as what an inbound campaign is. And there's a million blogs out there that say that's an amazing idea and here's how to do it in a different way and all that. So the point being is, don't just keep reiterating the same.
Not that doing it's bad.
No.
It's that if you do it for every campaign,
I think
you've
30-page ebook is bad, personally.
Yeah.
But doing it once or twice for specific reasons, yeah. But then I think people obsess over that structure, just fill in the blanks of what the title of the ebook is, the titles of the blogs, but it's exactly the same structure every time.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge misstep, that you get into a false sense of security because you always get people downloading your stuff and you think this is the best I can get.
Yeah.
So not only flip the content type to be something completely different, interactive or something video based or a total different format, ungated, gated, play around with that too and do different things, but just not necessarily going down that replicated thing every time and try and downloads might not be what you need to create for that campaign. You might just need to do something different totally. But I think that's definitely one that I see and I try and stamp out.
It's easy if you, again, retrace people's steps now. They get there, like, I'm pretty certain if you went and did the inbound marketing cert on HubSpot today, it would tell you to make a download or do an ebook as part of your campaign. And like I say, it's not necessarily that's bad advice. It's a good thing to do. It's just you can't do it every quarter for 5 years. Like it's got its time, it's got its place. I think specifically on the content format type, like we've analysed this, and ebooks are the worst performing, and I've always put it in my shoes. I can't think of anything I want an ebook for. The ebook's not the answer to anything I need, really. No. I can't think of anything. Like, usually I want an answer to something that isn't hidden within 30 pages. Normally I want, like, to know I'm doing the right thing. I want to learn how to do it. Whatever my thing is, an ebook's not the answer. So if I want to learn how to do something, I want to go to a video library. If I want to know I'm doing the right things, I want a checklist or something. If I want to execute on something, I want like a spreadsheet or a template. Like, no matter what the question is, there's a better format than an ebook, I'd argue, for everything. And
all that sort of perceived value that you may well pack into these documents, like there's so many other ways you can use that before that conversion point. Like if you're dead set on sharing data and findings and cool like nuggets of information, like just get that out on social, like put it on your website, like put it in a blog or whatever, and I think that, yeah, just looking at the ebook thing as that is a solution for a very specific problem, which may be one campaign, but it cannot be the specific answer for every campaign and every problem. So you have to go through the process of finding out, Rikki wants to figure this out, what's the best way we can get that in front of him that will pique his interest initially anyway with something else, but eventually get to that point and be the right sort of format for him.
Yeah.
That's a video, right? We'll do it as a video, and yeah, we can get a turnstile through Vidyard, or we can worry about all that stuff later, but try and just go that route first and then figure out how feasible that is and have we got budget to answer that question in the best way.
Yeah.
And like you say, work your way back. Like the ideal format, can we afford that? No, right? What's the next nearest thing we can do, and work your way up to it. But yeah, that again, it's coming back to confidence, because it's so easy for me to say, don't do an ebook, do a video. But like you're sat there thinking, well, I'm designing these ebooks myself in Canva and I haven't got any time to
easy to get
do
buy-in
video.
for, and people know what you're talking about.
People,
and
they saw it last campaign, they liked it, I can get this signed off. And that is unfortunately the challenge of this whole game, isn't it? Like when you get into those cycles, whether it's us with clients or you're in-house with your manager or whatever, or whoever you're working with, it's trying to educate people and help them understand this as well, so that they're not looking for an ebook every time or asking, why haven't we got an ebook? Like, are we not doing it? It could be the same for anything. Are we doing another video this quarter? Like, well, no, because we did that and now we need to try this format, or they complement each other. You just got to have those like canned responses to educate everyone around you, which is the bane of life for a marketer, isn't it? Everyone thinks they know better, unfortunately. So you do have to have that up your sleeve. But I think all of these things we sort of collectively brought into this topic of confidence, and kind of not just confidence in your decisions and presenting them, but confidence in your own research and your own prep, and encouraging your convictions, so to speak, around this is my persona and I've spent the time 3 months ago building this sort of thing, so I'm going to rely on that, and I'm going to hold on and hypothesize against it and try and disprove it or whatever, and actually do the work to get through that and make sure I'm using it properly. That is the challenge, isn't it? Which I think summarises everything, really. Yeah,
it comes down to confidence and research. I think Gary Vee has a good saying of do what I do and not what I say, which when you look at, everyone would probably say HubSpot are the masters of inbound marketing, the ones that get the most traffic and have done it the longest time or whatever. You go on there, they're not chucking out ebooks every month like that. They're well past those days now. You go and look at the content they're producing. We've had people talk our hooks multiple times who have all referenced their best lead gen things, and none of them are ebooks. The tools, it's the make my persona thing, it's the grade my website thing, it's spreadsheets, it's template quizzes, packs, and all these sorts of things. They're not ebooks. And so I think having to build up your confidence, there's looking at competitors, there's looking at your own analysis of your own results and making your own conclusions, there's knowing your target market, but then there's just knowing what's happening out there in the inbound world and what other people who are amazing at this doing, and keeping your ear to the ground is, but I haven't produced an ebook for 2.5 years. Like, there's something going on here. Yeah. And they have enough data to know whether that's right or wrong. And if it was driving leads, they'd knock one out a day. We know they would.
Unfortunately with HubSpot, they've probably got ebooks that are driving enough leads. And that's exactly the same for anyone running this. Like, if you do have something that's successful, great. You knee-jerk reaction is probably to iterate that and do it forever. Because you're just going to get more and more leads. But there is a ceiling to that, so hey, move on and do something else and keep that ticking over and keep it optimized. Great. But you've got to look around what's going on and not bury your head in the sand just because it worked 12 months ago.
Cool.
That's pretty much it, I think.
I like that episode. I think they are big pitfalls.
Tried not to rant too much, but
but we did.
Maybe that's the new vibe for this podcast. We need to stand out now with all these other ones. But I agree. I think this is definitely, I do see this happening. I see people, coming across this, and it is, I've been there as a marketer in my career of trying to do the same thing over and over and hoping that it works as well as it did last time. But there comes a time where you've got to step away from that. So hopefully people
bit of confidence to try something new in everyone's next campaigns.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So
Right,
next
yeah.
time we're committed to doing personas.
The persona.
How to get a
tear
useful persona. Oh, tear down some personas.
None
I
of
wonder
mine.
if someone could send some in and we could have a look
Please
at them.
do. That'd be
good.
amazing. Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, we'll do that. We'll do personas and see how that goes. Yeah.
awesome. Great episode. Cheers
Awesome.
for that. Enjoyed it.
Nice one. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.